Washington Post national correspondent Philip Bump joins us. Philip, good morning.
Morning.
Now, a rough transcript of the call between the president and the Ukrainian president essentially showed Trump telling him he would be hearing from Attorney General William Barr.
Right.
What are the implications of that, being that the Justice Department stood down on investigating the whistleblower account?
Right. Well, I think there are a couple of concerns that have been raised about that. The first is that those mentions of Barr also come in concert with mentions of Rudy Giuliani, who's working directly for the president. So essentially, President Trump is saying, this is my team. I have my attorney general and also my private lawyer, both of whom are working together on this issue. The issue, of course, being an investigation of his political opponent. Now, there are all sorts of ways in which this raises questions about Barr's role in this, a lot of which have been explored over the past few days. But it includes the fact that the Department of Justice also declined to take any action looking at this as a potential campaign finance violation. So there are all sorts of ways in which Barr is implicated that I think is sort of piquing the House Democrats' interest.
But there's a difference in their involvement that's still being sorted out, what Giuliani was doing versus what Barr was doing.
Right, and that's exactly the question, though, right? So Giuliani working on behalf of the president is one thing. If he's working for the
private lawyer.
Exactly, as opposed to the attorney general being tasked in the same way.
This Ukraine has become this proxy war, right? Not now just between the Russia and the U.S., but between Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the question here for Democrats there are a lot of Democrats who for some time have sought a deeper investigation into President Trump. This has given them a mechanism, sort of a rationale that didn't exist prior. The Republicans, of course, are rising generally to President Trump's defense. However, I think it's interesting to note that the defense is more muted than we saw, for example, in the Russia probe, in part because there's still a lot of unknowns. And I think a lot of Republicans are a little wary about jumping too strongly in President Trump's defense with some of these questions unanswered.
Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, announced this inquiry on Tuesday. We see how quickly things are moving. What are the implications for the Democrats and Republicans? Is it a good thing if we move quickly and we move on? Or do you even see this dragging out? Obviously not to the extent of the Russia investigation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Nancy Pelosi and other leaders in the Democratic House caucus have expressed an interest in moving quickly on this, in part to try and wrap this up fast. Nancy Pelosi has long been reticent to move on an impeachment probe, in part because she just won the House last year. She doesn't want to lose that again next year. She doesn't want to do anything which will turn off, people who might be willing to sort of vote Republican next year. That's part of her concern. I think she wants to have this wrapped up well before we start getting into the 2020 election cycle. But, the timeline is, it's not necessarily up to her.
But quick answer, if the House does impeach, what does the Senate do?
The Senate doesn't have to do anything. Mitch McConnell has said that he will launch a trial, but he can set the terms of how long that is. If the House Democrats want to drag up a lot of information, it's pretty much up to them.
All right, Philip Bump, thank you so much.